In true Texans fashion, Houston wins with a last-minute field goal, locks in the fifth seed. Playoffs, Houston is on the way.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, from H-Town to your town. Today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for Texan fans all around. Fun show for you today as we talk about Houston in a different light than what we started with. We're ending a whole lot different. Season finale review. I think this is the best way to look at Houston, finishing 12-5 on the year, 9-game win streak complete. They don't lose in November. They don't lose in December. They opened up January with a dub. Let's review the season and how everything played into a role for Houston to win this game. The wins and worry from the Sunday victory versus the Colts to close out the year. Obviously, Houston locks in the fifth seed, which we'll talk about to open up the show, but there's some things that we need to worry about going into the playoffs, but overall just celebrating and acknowledging some of the good things we saw to close out the year. Like I said, we're going to talk about the Houston Texans locking in the fifth seed. They will play the winner of the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Baltimore Ravens game at the time of this recording. The game has not started yet, but the AFC North will be where Houston takes on their first playoff opponent. So fun show ahead of you guys. For you guys today, I'm your Texas Credential Media member and football analyst, John Hickman. And shout out to my everydayers from the Himalayas making the Locked On Texans podcast your first listen of the day. And for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and making Locked On Network the number one sports podcast in the nation. Like I said, we're going to open up with just talking about the Texans locking in the fifth seed. But today's episode is brought to you by Prospects. Download the Prospect app today and use code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Well, Texans, Swarmers out there, Battle Red Nation, it was a wacky game. Some moments from Houston, they looked like they were going to run off in this game. And in some of those moments throughout the game, it was a scare. But Houston gets a dub, extend the win streak to 9, finishes the season 12-5. Shout out to Tommy T. The touchdown was a perfect walk-off. Second time this season we've seen that. First time was against the Jags. In some ways, we saw some good for Houston and some great things to build on. I mean, obviously, we know the cliche. We hear the cliche each and every year. In the playoffs, you're going to be able to have to run the ball. And I think Woody Marks ran the ball well. 10 carries, 48 yards. We know that he is this team's starter at running back. He'll get the bulk of those carries. Houston will rely on him a lot in the playoffs. So it's a good way to close out his rookie campaign. He finishes the year. Didn't run the ball necessarily too good. I think right under 4 yards per carry. But we also know Woody's impact is, it goes further than the yards per pop. But he finishes the year at around 750 rushing yards on the season, 2 TDs. 3.6 yards per carry. But coming into this game, no Nico Collins. That was a great idea for me, in my opinion, for Houston. Figure out the other receivers, get them guys going, who can be somewhat of a catalyst or a player you can lean on going into the playoffs. The one active receiver who's been here the last couple of playoff runs and has been a part of the struggles from the wide receiver group is Xavier Hutchinson, right? And he finished the game with 5 catches, 84 yards. Going into this game, again, no Collins. And, hey, I thought Houston, great decision to do that. And it turned out good for Houston. A couple of big momentum-building moments. Hutch had a good day, got the opportunities and make the most of it. And then we also extend that conversation to the rookie, Jaden Higgins, who finds the end zone, 6th of his rookie career, 4 in the red zone for the young man. So I thought that was a good takeaway for Houston. And also just a great way for the rookie to end off his season, his campaign. So listen, I'll get to some more of the wins that were important from today's game and moving forward. But specifically looking at Houston locking in that 5th seed. I mean, like I've mentioned before, Houston's offense doesn't share the same benefits as many of the other playoff teams do. I think Houston is the only team in the AFC with a first year play caller and offensive coordinator. And it's really been all hands on deck all season for Houston's offense. And it's been a week to week change in who plays a bigger role in creating some offensive success. One week it could be Woody Marks. The next week, as of late, it could be some of the things that Jawar Jordan is doing. Dalton Schultz has played a huge role, right? Nico Collins has played a huge role. But when we look at some of those small moments that can be huge for Houston in those games, one week it's Xavier Hutchinson. Next week it may be the rookie Jane Higgins. Every 4 games, it feels like it's Jalen Noel, right? So I think how Houston got to locking up the 5th seed, how Houston got to getting 12 wins overall, it's been about everybody hands in on deck, and each week doing just enough, being good just enough, and I think that sums up the season and why Houston was able to lock in 5 and get to postseason play. This is an offensively challenged group that is known to create just enough distance between themselves and the opposing team to allow their defense to win it. And like today, that's what happened. I mean, it comes down to a last-second field goal in the fourth quarter to go up a couple of points, and then we see the Tommy T touchdown to close it off, which, again, we've seen that again after the defense make plays, get stops, limit the big plays down the field, which is what we'll talk about in the second segment when I look at some of the worries. But overall, this was a unit all year that played their role into getting to 5. Like when you look at the Houston Texans, ain't nobody coming to see you, Otis. That's the offense. Ain't nobody coming to see you. It's been the defense has been David Ruffin all year. All year, the defense has been the reason and the main catalyst as to why this team is winning games. But even David Ruffin had backup singers. The Temptations were a group, and everybody played their role. And for the Houston Texans, whether the defense was Cisco, whether the defense were Michael Jackson, there are other members in the group that has played a role to get you over the hump, to get to 5, to locking in the 5th seed, to winning 12 games. And all year has just been the Houston Texans offense. You know, okay, we're going to play a little bit better in the second quarter. We can score about 10 points in the second quarter. We can close out in the fourth quarter, maybe a couple of field goals after getting down there to the end zone or red zone area. That's just what it's been. And oh, by the way, 134 yards on the ground, 4.2 yards per carry. And Kaimi Fairbairn with a career day, 6 field goals. He's been Houston's best red zone offense all year. So that's how they got to 12 wins. Houston coming together and figuring this thing out in a crucial year, development year for CJ Stroud, year 3 with a new offensive coordinator. It ain't been all peaches and cream, right? And it ain't been a walk in the park. It ain't been daisies and everything. It's been some struggle moments this offense has had to find a way to grind themselves out of. Luckily, on the other side, the defense has given them multiple opportunities to do so. And I think that has allowed the Houston Texans offense to find more chemistry within themselves and, opportunity to create more rhythm because they continue to get the ball back. But that's why I believe this team can make a run. They got the 12 wins doing it. And now you're going to ask them to get to, win 4 more games. Can they do it the way that they've been doing it? I believe they can. It's been a collective fight, and hey, let's celebrate the Texans' wins and also discuss the worries as we prepare for the playoffs. Kicking off the year, feeling good is the goal, right? And honestly, hydration is the easiest win. When I stay on top of it, my energy, my focus, and my mood all level up. But let's be real, plain water doesn't always just cut it, right? Especially when you're grinding through long days, hitting the gym, or just trying to stay consistent with your health goals. That's where a drip drop comes in. Doctor developed, proven fast hydration that helps your body and mind work together, kind of like the Houston Texans. The defense and offense working together Drip drop can get you to that point. You think clear focus, better energy, elevated mood, and even that fresh skin glow. Right. I got my drip drop delivered a couple of weeks ago. I've been using drip drop as part of my daily routine. And honestly, it's a game changer, not just for workouts, but every single day activity. And what I also like about drip drop, science backed formula is trusted by firefighters. Who don't trust firefighters? Medical professionals and over 90% of top college and pro teams because it rehydrates you faster and more effectively than water alone. Right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code Locked On NFL. That's dripdrop.com. Promo code Locked On NFL for 20% off. Stock up right now at dripdrop.com and use promo code Locked On NFL. And also, Texas fans, playoffs are around the corner. And you know it's going to be fun. The action going to keep getting hotter and hotter. And that's where PrizePicks comes in. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Whether you're starting a new routine or jumping into a player projection for the first time, trying something new can feel like a challenge. But with PrizePicks, it always feels good to be right. With high pressure football matchups every weekend, elite hoops action almost every night, the action never slows down, and PrizePicks lets you stay in control. PrizePicks is the daily fantasy app that makes watching sports even more exciting by letting you build lineups based on player projections. No draft, no waiting. Just pick more or less and play your way. Getting started on PrizePicks was quick and simple. The app is super easy to navigate. It's made watching games more engaging, especially when following individual player performances. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks is good to be right. Again, big win for the Houston Texans Sunday after sweeping the Colts. Before the season, caught a lot of flack for this, by the way. Two things happened. I said, hey, the Houston Texans would win 12 games. They do that. I said, hey, listen, Jags gonna get one, right? And I thought the Titans would get one, but Houston swept them. But I caught a lot of flack from people in the Colts world because I said, hey, Houston's going to take care of them twice. Twice. And Houston did it. And since both being hired in the same head coaching cycle, what's that win-loss record for Shane Steichen versus D'Amico Ryans? I'll wait. A lot of people wanted Shane Steichen here in Houston. But time and time again, Shane Steichen ain't beating D'Amico Ryans like that. D'Amico just continues to show you he's an elite coach. And in his first year, I think overseeing the offense a lot more than he did the first couple of seasons, trusting Matt Burke, trusting the foundation that he built and put together. I think he played a major role in doing a couple of things. Number one, just getting Nick Caley through the season. We talk a lot about how bad or how good or whatever you may view Nick Caley as a first-time offensive play caller who came into this season with high expectations around him because where the team was at, but not necessarily where he was at in his first year, right? So you gotta really shout out D'Amico Ryans in that sense of helping bring Caley along and also helping bringing in Cole Popovich along and CJ Stroud along as a leader of this team. Now, we did hear from CJ Stroud after the game. Let's hear what some of the things he had to say.
I wanted to keep playing. I feel like I was just getting in the groove. And, we had a rough first quarter, but I felt in the second quarter, we were moving the ball, scored in the red zone twice. Always, whenever I get the chance to play, I want to play as much as I can. So, but I understand why I wasn't able to and, got to just move on. Yeah, I think we moved the ball really well. And even the first quarter, we just, I had the intentional grounding and missed a couple reads, and I think, there was a couple of those, in every aspect. And I think at the end of the day, we overcame it, and that's a good thing. But we got to get those things fixed, if we want to go win in the playoffs. And, I'm aware of that, and I think our coaches are, and I know everybody is here. So we're going to get those things fixed. And, but at the end of the day, it's all about finishing and getting wins. And I think the way we ended this game is a testament to how our season's kind of gone. A lot of up and down, but I think if you just stay faithful, you stay, and it's like I told y'all before, it's easy to have faith when it's easy, but when it gets a little hard, who has the real faith and the work that we've put in, I think, we trust in one another, to get the job done. The experience that we do have from, me having a little more experience to our defense, our offense, our special teams, our coaches, our front office, everybody, we know what it takes to, win these games. And, I mean, that's just a really, really solid execution plan and executing the little things because, everybody thinks when you go to the playoffs, you got to do all the extraordinary stuff. But it's really the ordinary the team that does the ordinary stuff better than the other team wins.
And as I talk about D'Amico Ryans being that coach to kind of, have to hold things together during those rocky moments, that sounds like a quarterback that's completely on page with his head coach and starting to echo things. And execution has been the word for D'Amico Ryans, in my opinion, all season. He's highlighted in the games that they lost early on. If we executed better, we're 3-0 and not 0-3. Right? Moments where they struggle, if we execute better, we're looking at a different output. And he's absolutely right. But when we look at some of the wins for Houston, CJ Stroud I thought was good today. I thought CJ Stroud was good for Houston throughout the game. And I thought that when we look at his final day, 14 to 23, 169 yards, 1 TD, 0 interceptions, 0 sacks. What I liked about from CJ Stroud and the offense, look, he got a whole lot better against the blitz. 119 yards versus the blitz versus Colts. I thought that was good. Now, the Colts defense broken down, banged up, and I get that. However, that was a struggle for Stroud last week. You like to see him clean up on those things heading into the playoffs. So kudos, to Stroud there. Also, the play action game played a huge role for Houston. CJ Stroud, 4-5, 53 yards, and a TD. What you like about Stroud, he exited the game healthy, right? Not beaten up, not banged up. But when they go back and watch film this week and they look at the tape, CJ, when we see you do these things well and you do it at a higher level, then we know the expectation from us for you is you can do it again. And honestly, last week when they took on when the Texans took on the Chargers, it's one of those moments where it happens because CJ Stroud, for the most part this year, has been pretty good versus the blitz, I think. And he's cleaned up on some of the things he's done in pressure versus the pressure. Like he's cut down on turnover worthy plays. He's cut down on turnovers altogether. Again, another day from CJ Stroud with no turnovers. He finishes the year with 20 total TDs and 10 and 8 interceptions. But for Stroud, he went 3 games in a row without a turnover. He had 2 last week against the Chargers, and he finishes off the season with 0. That's good. That's a win for Houston, right? Obviously, I talked about the run game. They did a good job of running behind who? That right guard spot. Ed Ingram continues to have a good year for Houston. 35 yards rushing the right guard way. So that's a win for Houston. And I also want to highlight Dalton Schultz continuing to be all dependable. May not be all world this year for Houston. And he's been all world for Houston, but he may not be all world. But a win this game, Dalton Schultz. And Dalton Schultz has been a win for Houston almost every game this year, playing through his own personal injuries and things of that nature. Now, when we look at the worry for Houston, Tremont Smith, brother. So, and I got to shout out my boy Corey Bear, who brings this point up a lot, and I think we do get away from it. Players are backups for a reason, right? And the expectation for players should not be that they produce the same level that the starter will. No Kamari Lassiter for Houston to play against the Colts, and Tremont Smith had a bad day, but it's how he had a bad day. It isn't just that guys are just making plays on him. It's that he's just allowing plays to be made by being out of position. That's why it's an issue. 72 yards and 1 TD allowed according to PFF. Ingram also allowed 53 yards. Yeah, not too bad. But another worry and this has been a worry for Houston all season, and it hurt them against the Colts at various times. 7 penalties, 77 penalty yards. So I get it. Like Houston didn't have a turnover. That's great. They caused turnovers. That's great. They were able to score in the red zone, 2 or 3 in the red zone. That's great. They ran the ball well at a good yard per pop, over 4 yards per pop, 134 yards on the ground. That's great. Xavier Hutchinson was able to have a good moment for Houston without Nico Collins. That's great. But I can almost guarantee you, C.J. Stroud mentioned execution. D'Amico Ryans has mentioned execution all year. When they look at how did this game get so difficult for them on either side of the ball, the penalty on defense, the penalty, the C.J. Stroud's, his intentional grounding, moments like that is what hurts Houston. It's what hurts Houston. And more so, it hurts the Houston Texans offense. They can't have these penalties. They can't have those moments to where a 2nd and 10, if you just throw the ball away, or if you just hit the guy underneath. I don't know if there was Harrison Bryant, Kay Stover, or Dalton Schultz, but there was a guy open underneath that C.J. Stroud could have found and maybe got upfield or maybe just live with the yards that he got on the pass. But if he got a little bit choppy, look for the play downfield, and that resulted to an intentional grounding. Moments like that we've seen C.J. Stroud improve from. Just stay at that level at a consistent pace, right? And defensively, you got to be better. Now, what hurt Houston more than the penalties in this game, in my opinion, in the first half alone, they had 4 plays of 15 or more yards allowed, including the 60-yard touchdown from Alec Pierce. And if Alec Pierce don't get put out this game, this could be a whole different conversation, right? But the explosive plays for Houston's defense was just not up to par to their standard. 9 plays of 10 or more yards, 7 plays of 15 or more yards. You maybe can live with that. But 4 plays of 20 or more yards, and that includes 2 plays of 50 or more yards. That's just unacceptable. That's a worry for this elite defense that has caused hell for players and teams all year. But if we look at one of the weaknesses for this defense, I think a lot of that has to do with the inconsistencies of who's been back there with Caleb Bullock. It's been the explosive plays allowed back deep. Now, no Kamari Lassiter in this game. That plays a huge role. You may also worry about, Derek Stingley, who allowed 2 back-to-back plays, good plays as well. But Houston going into the playoffs, will offenses look to shrink down a little bit more depending on the personnel and run against them? Well, that's not going to be in the favor of the opposing team. That are playing to the favor of Houston's defense. But if some of these offensive coordinators looking at how can they attack the Houston Texans defense, it's those explosive plays downfield and then getting into the red zone where the defense and the field shrinks altogether. So it's a good day to see some of the good things from Houston, some of the wins, and also look at some of the worries going into the playoffs. But closing out today's show, let's talk about this season finale review and just what a remarkable year it's been for the Houston Texans all together. More Locked On Texans when we return. But before that conversation, NFL playoffs are now in full swing, right? There's nothing better than being at the game, the crowd noise, the energy, cheering alongside other fans. Watching the game at home is great, but being in the stadium is different. The frustrating part has always been getting the tickets, waiting in queues, dealing with logins, and watching prices change right at checkout. It's frustrating, and I understand that, but it doesn't have to be frustrating with Game Time. That's why the Game Time app gives the advantage back to fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NFL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I pulled up the Game Time app to check out any and all of the upcoming NFL games. Also, what's happening in the city of Houston all together. Found great tickets and options almost instantly. The app is incredibly intuitive. Browsing, comparing, and buying tickets took just a couple of minutes. And they also have the Game Time guarantee. Give you that real peace of mind. So take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account. Use code Locked On NFL. That's LOCKED for 20 ED NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKED on NFL, Locked On NFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today and get back to being there live. And this episode is also sponsored by BetterHelp. The new year doesn't require a new you, maybe just a less burden you. We all carry things that weigh us down or hold us back, and therapy can help you identify what those things are by offering an unbiased perspective to better understand your relationships, motivations, and emotions. That's where BetterHelp comes in, making it easy to get matched online with a qualified therapist who can help you work through things and what's holding you back. All BetterHelp therapists are fully licensed in the U.S. and work according to strict code of conduct. They do the matching work for you. A short questionnaire identifies your needs and preferences, and with over 12 years of experience, they typically get it right the first time. BetterHelp makes it easy to get matched online with a qualified therapist. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/locked on. That's betterhelp.com/locked on. Let's review this season all together. It's been a wild year, man. It's been a wild year, and I can't wait to dive more into the actual game and some of the things that we could take away. Houston gets ready for their playoff game next week. That's going to be fun. It will be away. Houston will not, at the very least, host a home game in round one. However, how did they even get to this point? When we look at the season finale review, I think it's very important to do a couple of things. Number one, highlight the growth from your offensive play caller and coordinator in his first season, Nick Caley. It was ugly to start the year off. You guys know that. Many of you want to fire him even now. And my question to that is, what do you guys expect for these offensive coordinators to do? Like, they can't go out there and make the throw, or the player has to understand how to get open versus certain coverages, right? So, all things considered, I think Nick Caley finished the season better than how he started the year off, and I think Houston should absolutely bring him back. But also, it'd be idiotic for Houston to look to move on and bring in a third offensive coordinator and have three offensive coordinators in 3 consecutive seasons. That's just bad practice. However, the season finale review, this offensive line here in Houston may be playing some of the best in terms of protecting the quarterback, maybe playing some of the best, if not the best, in the NFL. And I am serious when I say that. Since CJ Stroud returned versus the Colts, the sack numbers look like 2, 3, 1, 0, 0, 0. That's 6 sacks allowed. And it ain't all on the offensive line, by the way, but 6 sacks allowed in 6 weeks of football. They are playing some very good football. And I think when you look at how that translates into what's next for Houston, they need that. They are going to need that. The playoffs is where things get tough. It gets rough. And when you want your quarterback to be upright to make some of these throws in tight windows, to be able to step into the pocket to make a throw on 3rd and 8 to continue a drive, you got to trust your offensive line. And I do think that was an issue early on, but I think CJ Stroud trusts his offensive line a little bit more now, and he's able to have the confidence when he's playing his best ball to step up in the pocket and make throws. The season finale is wrapped up like this. You notice I mentioned two elements of this team that at the start of the year didn't have no confidence, no trust. We didn't trust them. We didn't have no confidence to be productive, had question marks surrounding them, didn't know how they were going to finish the year out, thought that this was going to be one of the worst groups in the NFL, whether it's in terms of play calling or whether it's in terms of being able to protect the quarterback. That's what we thought to start the year. But when we look at the offensive EPA per game, the 2025 season, a lot better than the 2024 season. So that's a credit to Nick Caley. When we look at where this offensive line is compared to itself from a year ago, they've allowed nearly 20 less sacks this year. CJ Stroud has only been sacked 23 times this year. The combined total of sacks allowed this season is at 31. It ain't 55 like Geno Smith and the Raiders. It ain't 55 like Cam Ward with the Titans. It ain't 54 like Justin Herbert with the Chargers. It's 31. So this season finale review, let's wrap it all up into one thing. It's not about how you start, but it's definitely about how you finish. And for the Houston Texans, they finished 9 straight victories to make it to the 5th seed, winning 12 games. The first time in Nico Ryans and CJ Stroud's era. The most in a regular season, 12 games. What more can you ask for? Ask for more Locked On Texans, and I will deliver tomorrow and throughout the week. Your team every day. Please follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12 and Instagram at SomeSportsGuy. Also, let's run those YouTube numbers up. Subscribe, like, and comment. We are close, ladies and gentlemen, to 10,000 subscribers. Once I get there, I'm going to have to throw a party in here or something, man. Have the strobe lights going. I don't know, but I can't do it without you guys. Until next time, ladies and gents, Texas fans across the world, peace.